All right, well, welcome everyone to another BC Sandpile. I'm really excited about today's topic because honestly, this was something that when I saw it on the Sandpile website, I said, how in the world did they get this done? I didn't know that this was possible on Business Catalyst. And not only is it possible, but we have one of the people that helped put it together, who's the co-host, Dave Haglad, and that is, of course, we're referring to the member messaging on the Sandpile website. So the ability to send messages back and forth in a secure zone to people who are members to the same site. So really excited about that topic. And before we get into that, just wanted to quickly give some kind of industry news. So on the BC App Store and BC Guru side of things, no update from last week, although I know we've been saying this every week for a couple of weeks, but the new e-commerce template for BC Gurus is coming very soon. Dave's working really hard on that, and we're really proud of that template. It's taking a little bit longer than anticipated. Hopefully, it's worth the wait. And then on the BC Academy side of things, Brian Mulholland had a great new tutorial last week, which is if you're looking to create, let's say, like a wiki for a site and want that kind of dynamic navigation to automatically populate and categorize based on your web app items, then Brian's tutorial and kind of plugins that he used are really great for that over at BC Academy. But with that, I will turn it over to Dave, who's undoubtedly the star of the show today, and let him take it away from here.
Well, thanks very much, Mike. I guess I'm going to say that I see that Scott Reynolds is on the line. He's either here to take some extra credit because he did quite a bit of it as well, or he's here to fact check. I'm not sure which.
Or to hop on as a panelist, show his face and make himself known.
Oh, you could do that. You could do that. If we'll see if he's listening. I know we'll see if he does that or not. So I'm on the Sandpile site, and what we're talking about, if I go to my activity, and of course I'll be stuck with the world's slowest internet connection. There it goes. We're talking about this messaging field here. So in this case, it would message me, but let's just say when I click on messages, I'm sorry, this was it was pretty fast about a half hour ago. So you can see here, I've been talking with Bill and Kim, which is why I'm glad Bill is on the line. So let's just say I wanted to message Bill. When I'm viewing his profile, so I can look at Bill's activity, his votes and all the rest of it. But if I want to just send him a quick message, and you can see we're limiting it to the Twitter limit of 140 whatever characters, just to try and keep things short. And you hit send message, and that message goes to Bill, and he gets a nice email, and hopefully he'll have a minute and he'll reply back to me, and we'll see what the results are. But that's the functionality that we're talking about, and at its core, it's relatively simple, although the code will look fairly complex. So I'm going to try and step through it and give you an idea of what went into it, and maybe you can decide if you can then put this into practice on one of your sites. So at its core, it's just a web app. So when I sent that message to Bill, there's a form in the back end there that generates this web app item. So we pre-build this item name so that someone looking for a message can find it relatively easy. It puts the from EID, there's a profile EID, there's a profile web app on the side here, the to EID, and the to profile ID. Now the EID is the entity ID, and that's assigned by Business Catalyst. So I capture these just for ease of use, but what you can't see behind the scenes is this message is actually categorized by these same numbers. So when I want to output my messages, this was sent for me from Bill. So I'm the to EID. When I go to my message page, output my messages, all I'm really doing is it's a module web app call with any item from the Messenger web app that was classified with my EID. So that's how we're getting these items on the page here. So not real rocket science that way. The back end is the trick there, and it's that dynamic classification. And I think actually I should have brought this up. I'm sorry. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
Is this a paid sponsor break here?
Yes. do 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 do. Yeah, I know. I'll try and find the link near the end here, or I'll post it in with the recording. There's actually a whole video on creating these dynamic classification of items of web app items, and it's just using the built-in classification system, but you can't get to it by going to the bottom here to site settings classifications. They don't show up there. You just have to know that they exist, and that's kind of why we output this from EID and from profile ID, so that we have some way at least of knowing what number it was applied to. So that's all that's really going on. It's there's a form in the back end that creates this web app item, and then we use the autoresponder in order of another form in order to send that message.
Hey, Dave, before you move on, I feel like that's a really important point that you just went over there that maybe not a lot of people are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about the concept. I think the tutorial you're trying to find BC Gurus was about how you can create a new category from the front end of Business Catalyst, right? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. And it can be whatever you want. It can be a number, it can be a word, it can be pretty much anything you can put as a classification. The only difference is it won't show up under site settings classifications.
Got it. So when you go back to your web app that has all the IDs in it, that Messenger web app,
yeah,
is that the name of the catalog, or is that the ID of the catalog? How's that linking?
That's a classification. So in effect, if I took that, it's basically the same effect as categories. It's basically as if I did that. If I created a new category and I pasted that EID number and just said save, it's doing essentially the same thing. The difference is because it's being done in the back end, they do not show up on this list. That was just us playing around.
And so that ID represents the name of the category, not the ID of the category. Because that would have been my question as well. How do you get the ID of this category if you can't access it in the back end? But okay, that makes sense. We're using an ID, a different ID to be the name of the category. Okay,
that's correct. Yeah, it could just have easily have been my name.
Sure.
But because names have apostrophes and dashes and multiple, sometimes hyphenated names and sometimes three names, we decided that the EID was probably the most reliable way to do it.
Right, and we don't want to confuse you with the other Dave Haglads in the world.
That's right.
Business Catalyst, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and generally speaking, if you find another Hagblad, by the way, they're probably related to me. It's a pretty rare name.
So same thing with Salander. We have that in common, Dave.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of just to finish that note here. This could just as easily have been something like that. But you run into problems when you're trying to use text like that. So this EID is unique. It's original. It's unique per person. It was the simplest way to do it. So then on the page, I just asked for any of these web app items that were classified with whichever EID I want, basically.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
We have Scott Reynolds, the other co-creator of this functionality, who has a little bit of disagreement with you, perhaps. He thinks it might be the ID and not the name of the category. So Scott, I don't know. Maybe you guys will duke that one out later and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we'll see. Now let me find on this page. So this is a long page, so I'm going to gloss over some of it. So if we're on a profile page, we do a module data web call where the ID is equal to the EID. And the EID is just whoever happens to be logged in. So if I'm on a profile page, it basically does a module data call with my EID and stores that information under profile data in a collection called profile data. And then we assign a variable called CRM, which is basically contains profile data.items. It just basically gets all the items, and that allows us to just easily reference the field that we're looking for. And then the meat of that matter is down to 357. So here's where we're outputting a widget basically. And it doesn't much matter other than we're passing these parameters: CRM first name, CRM last name, CRM entity ID, and the profile ID. So we're passing that to another module web app call, which outputs widgets. Now that is a little bit confusing, but it's basically passing it into this web app item. So you see contact params CRM first name. That is what gets us this contact Dave here. Does that make sense?
Can you do that again, Dave?
Yes. So we had an idea originally where there was going to be lots of widgets down the sidebar here. So we were trying to load them through a web app. In the end, we got one working and a couple more kind of working, and this is the one that took off. So I passed that first name parameter you saw here, CRM first name. I'm passing that value based on my module data call. I'm picking it up here and dropping it into the title of that widget, contact params.crm first name, and that is what outputs this contact Dave.
Dave, we got to stop here. I just feel like there's so many advanced topics that you guys implemented in order to make this work, and I want to stop and make sure everyone understands that. So can you go back to that web app item, please? So I had no idea. This is not for show. I literally had no idea that you could put a liquid variable as the inside the name of a web app item.
I didn't either. That's Mr. Reynolds discovered that.
That is very, very cool. And were you saying that this is something that works consistently, or sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and this time it just happened to work? I wanted to get some clarification on that in case someone is really intrigued by what they're seeing here and wants to go start using it on their own site.
As near as I can tell, from everything I've seen, it works consistently.
That's great. And so do you know, Dave, does that also work inside of any of the custom fields within Business Catalyst, or is it just limited to, let's say, the name and the description?
That I don't know.
And Scott Reynolds, if you know that answer, that'd be just good to have that knowledge. If not, that's fine as well. But I get excited about learning new things here. And this is, I had never seen this trick before. So that's really, really, really awesome.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't mean to gloss over. That is a pretty substantial trick. It's a very interesting way to, we were looking for a way to put that into the title in an easy way, and I think Scott just popped it in there, and the darn thing worked. So,
and so Dave, I want to dig into this a little bit more. Like, why do we need to use this method? Or maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the question is there's several different approaches, and this is just the approach that you chose, and it's cool that it works this way. Or is there a problem that you were trying to solve that this was the only solution to it?
If I remember correctly, the original intent was we were going to have multiple widgets possible down the right-hand side here. Not just a messenger app, but there were some other ideas that we had that we were going to try and do. And this was a way to personalize the title bar, basically, of that widget without having to put the code within the detail area here.
Okay.
That's the problem I think we were trying to solve was trying to get it through the title.
And so I think if I'm talking out loud here, and maybe this is not correct, but another way you could approach this is if you go back to the front end where you see the box, that could just be the detail view of that widget, and contact could be hard-coded, and then Dave could be the liquid variable on the page that outputs your name. But I think the problem with that is that the liquid variables do not bleed into the list and the detail view of web apps. So I think it would cause you, if you wanted to do it that route, you probably have to make that lookup again to the module data to find your first name, or find another sort of variable to do it. Or would you be able to pass, or you could probably just pass it as a custom parameter when you call this widget. So I know I just said a lot of things, but I'm trying to. This was an ingenious thing for you guys to do, but I'm trying to see if there's a root kind of reasons why we needed to do this versus taking a kind of more straightforward approach. I know it's been years since you guys set this up, so it's an unfair question to ask on the spot. But
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's outputting a list view at this point. This is a list view item, and I think that's what we were trying to get to. You see, I'm passing parameters into the detail view, so that's there as well. That's where the form itself exists. So I think in effect, you probably could have just put that header right in the detail view here, and it would have worked. It would have worked okay as well.
Okay.
But you're right in that I don't remember exactly why you chose to put it there, other than maybe we thought it was cool.
Cool. Well, anyways, either way, a very cool concept that I'm glad that people are finding out as a possibility here.
Yeah, Scott says it had to do with the widget concept, so I think it is related to that. So, to just output it on the page, you don't have to go through that whole widget variable thing. You could just as easily drop this code in a sidebar and be done with it, right?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So playing around with the idea of making some things more plug and play, possibly not just for this website, but perhaps if you wanted to implement this on a different site or something as well.
Yeah. So here we're getting a hold of the profile entity ID, the profile name. That's the first name, last name. This .profile ID. So we're getting some ID type information, just assigning it to some variables. We're getting the sender name, global user.full name. We're getting the entity ID of the current user. So when this loads, we're basically getting a bunch of information about the person who's logged into this page, which in this case is me, and just setting it into some variables.
Okay, so Dave, sorry, go back to that again. I think some of this stuff being advanced, and perhaps if someone's new to it, it's worth going through again. So just want to clarify here. So anything with the params dot is our variables that are being passed to this through that other call right here. So these are all custom. This is another advanced concept that maybe not everyone's aware of, that you can actually define your own parameters in this web app call, and then inside of the view, like Dave was showing, you can then reference that by params. So those are kind of custom variables that are being passed in, if you will. And then below that, the globals, these are variables that are available to you as a developer really anywhere throughout the website. So you're kind of using a combination of past variables and global variables to kind of set the stage for what you're about to do later.
You bet. Yeah. This, at its simplest, this at the top is the person I want to send the message to. And this is the information for me so that I can pre-populate this form.
Got it.
Now the form itself, I have a bit of an alert there. That's fine. It just says, thank you, your message has been sent. The form is called send message. And you can see the action. There is no action because I'm putting it down here in an AJAX call. It really just has a text area. And I've got a max length of 140 on that, so you can't type anymore. And then I've got this field called character numbers, and all that is when you start typing, it just gives you, it just gives you a countdown there of the number of characters you have left. So what we were trying to avoid was having someone type. We're not trying to build an email system. We're trying to build a kind of an instant messaging system.
Right, which is also smart too, because there is actually a limit to the number of characters that custom fields and web apps can have. And so even if you didn't like the 140, you probably had to set it to like 2040 or whatever it would need to be within Business Catalyst anyway. So that's a smart mechanism in there, I think, regardless.
You bet. And again, it was simply meant to be a quick messaging thing. Probably, I don't know, half of it was us seeing if we could do it. And then once we did it and it worked, we go, well, maybe we'll share that, right? Because it's pretty cool. So a quick function here that just counts the characters and displays a message if you're over, does the countdown and all the rest of that stuff. And then we have a message button on click. That's this button. So when you click it, it does a few things. So first of all, it disables the message button, so you can't click it twice. it sets up the action URL, which is web form ID 35409. So if I go back here, this is web form 35409. So it's basically submitting this web form. Does that make sense? You can see there's an email address because you kind of have to have one, and then the message itself.
Okay.
So it's just building that action URL saying submit that form. For the EID, what I want to put in is the profile entity ID, and that's the person I'm trying to send the message to. So that's the trick here. Normally, this would be my entity ID.
Oh, yeah.
But this, what I'm basically doing is faking this form up as if, when I sent the message to Bill, as if Bill sent it. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's such a smart approach. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that because my natural thought would have been, okay, I think Business Catalyst has this mechanism where you can like send an email to an external contact, but I think that's kind of garbage formatting. There's not really much you can do with it, right? And then maybe you don't have as good a visit. I don't know if there's actually a log of that in the back end for us to reference later. So this is smart. So you're saying I'm logged in. If I'm sending you a message, Dave, I'm actually spoofing a web form fill as if you would have sent it. That way that you're going to get that automatic email responder, and then we can format it with the message, like, and put in the message that I want to send to you. So that's a really, there's really a smart way to approach this. And I got to imagine this was a lot of fun for you to Scott and work on, because it was probably just a bunch of aha moments after the other. Like, oh, we didn't know we could do this, and then that, and then that, and that. And you got to string all these things together to ultimately get this. So that must have been pretty exciting.
It was actually, yeah, we had a lot of fun. So what I'm basically doing is the same thing as if I went to this and I hit submit. Now you get this automatic submission, but in my email somewhere, eventually, I get that auto response. So whatever you set up as the autoresponder, I get it because I entered this contact. And all I'm really doing is spoofing that. And I'm saying Bill sent the message, so send the autoresponder to him.
Yeah.
And then there we go.
Smart, very smart.
So I just got this message, and all we're doing then, and I'll show you how we do it, but I'm basically, instead of putting my email address in there, I'm putting Bill's in, so he gets this autoresponder. So he was kind enough to send me that message. This is what he got from me.
Okay, nice.
Right? So he gets a nicely formatted message, and I'll show you all that. But that's basically what we're doing, is spoofing that that technique. So let me get back to where I was. So yeah, I submit that form. I showed you the form. The message text, I get the message off of the form. That's fine. I do this var notify partner, and then I call it, which basically is an AJAX submission. I submit to that URL. I post it. There's my data. That's all fine. So on success of that, then I post. That's where all these extra parameters come in. I do another AJAX call, and I submit a web app item to this messenger web app. And that's how I get that EID, the profile ID, and the names and stuff. So first off, I send them. I spoof the form into sending them the autoresponder to the person I want to send it to, and then I just create a web app item under this messenger web app. Does that make sense?
So the form, you're submitting the form because that way you can actually get the email notification out.
Right.
But you're submitting the web app so that you've got a nice log of the transaction that you can refer to in the website when you display it here. So when you're actually outputting these lists of messages, you're outputting the web apps associated, rather than trying to make a lookup on the contact form that was submitted.
That's right. I'm simply outputting the web app items on this page, so you can see where Bill replied, and I'll get back to that in a sec. But that's all I'm really doing. First, I'm submitting basically like a contact form where I've spoofed the system into thinking that it was whoever I want to send it to was the entity ID, and then they get the autoresponder, and then I'm creating this under the messenger web app. I don't know where I got that one open. in the Messenger web app, which is this one here. Sorry, that says web forms. It shouldn't. It was doing that to me earlier. That's where I'm building this from EID profile to EID and the to profile ID. Now this category trick is the bottom line here. So the first is just the item name. You can see a message from the profile name from sender name. That's really just giving me this. So it got my name, Dave Hagblad. It got Bill's. He's entered his as Kim Green and Bill Scholler. So that's built here. The description is simply the message. Cat custom 2, that's just the from EID, the from profile ID, the to EID. That's all just this information here.
Okay.
And then the big trick is this cat category. And that's where I'm saying categorize or classify this message with all those 4 things.
Okay. So let's pause. Why is that needed?
So when I go to pull the messages out here, I say, show me all the messages that are classified with my EID. And because I classified them with...
Okay, got it. So at first, I mistakenly thought that this was creating one category that had all of this data in it. But what you're saying is that this is creating 4 separate categories. And then that way, both the sender and the receiver's ID, this is categorized again so that you can then easily call that, and all the web apps that are categorized as that specific person's ID on the page. Okay, now I think I'm getting it now.
That's correct. And I'll get to the code that calls it. When I go to see my messages, I'm saying, show me all the Messenger web app items that are classified or categorized with this number. And when Bill goes to his will show up as that in this case, because he sent it to me, right?
So you guys must be looping through and finding both anything that's categorized as the from EID or the to ID, or it doesn't even matter whether it's the from or the to, because it's going to go into the category regardless.
That's right.
There you go. Okay.
That's right.
But then, so the categorization gives you all the to and the froms, but then once you get that specific web app, then you can look up the message to see whether or not that person was on the receiving end or the sending end. And then you can, based on the custom field, not the category, and then that's where you can have some sort of different style or display or something if you wanted to versus a send or a receive.
That's right. So as a message from, I don't think I'm showing... Yeah, I don't show any of the message.
Are you not sending any messages to people, Dave? Are you just a receiver of messages, not a giver?
So you see this button here, now it says all messages. So when I click all messages, then I show the twos.
Okay.
But when I only want to see received messages, which is normal, I wouldn't normally want to see all my messages that I sent, right?
Right.
So yeah, you're right in what you said. I can format them differently as you see here, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And guess what? When I reply, I'm using this exact same technique. If I was to reply right here. Are you guys keeping
track that it's a reply to that, or does it just go in as a message just like the other? Said a different way, is it any different than filling out that form on the right?
It is not, no.
Okay.
And that's because when you start to talk about threading, then it starts to get complex, right?
Oh yeah, now we got to start adding more custom fields and more categorizations probably, and so on.
Exactly. And this last little bit is basically, it gives you a nice little message here that it sent something and then it goes away. That's kind of the end of that code. And if you're not logged in, it just says you must be logged in to send a message. So that's pretty much the gist of it. If you just had this code, you wouldn't necessarily need all this, although you'd have to figure out how you're going to get the from and the entity ID and maybe the profile ID of the person you want to send it to. So I should probably show you this profile, and I'll just show you mine because I don't want to expose anybody's information here.
Why are you letting all the people know how many members we have? So the cat's out of the bag.
There you go. So I mean, this profile is just basically this information that that users have entered. So anything I've entered here is what shows up in that profile web app. And it's simply because you can't get to this stuff from the CRM at this point.
Because to reiterate that point, Dave, the custom CRM data is not available via the API or module data. However, we could get that information through regular kind of business catalyst tags, but I think that limits perhaps their use.
You're correct. Yeah, we could not get it in the way that we needed to get it in order to put on the page. So we argued about it, and I won that one, and I did a profile web app. Scott found a way to get what you're talking about, but I felt it was a little more convoluted than it needed to be. And well, frankly, I didn't understand it, so I said no. So that's fine, and that's that widget. So let's get back to this page. Okay. And so I just got to find the profile.
I'm just amazed that you guys spent all of this time and put this ingenuity into building this out. I mean, and this is not a paid project, right? This is for the business catalyst community. So just looking through some of this code, I mean, this is not an easy feat. I imagine this was not one night's worth of work between the two of you. So I appreciate you guys putting all that work and time together.
It was quite a bit of work, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, he says about an hour. I think we worked about a year or so, maybe a little bit more than a year, every week for a couple of hours, and we kind of worked together for a couple of hours. And we went away and did our own little homework on whatever sections we were working on, and then came back the following week.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, but how do you put a price on what you learned? Like, when I look back at what we learned through all this, it's just amazing. The last thing I should show you is this autoresponder. So let me get back to that. Let's close a couple of windows here. So this notification messaging, when you look at the autoresponder, and this was something else Scott figured out, you see this include /auto.tpl. So you saw this new message for a BC partner. Let me just bring that over. That should look familiar, right? Howdy, Dave. New message from a BC partner. New message from a BC partner came from admin at Sandpile.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where this is generated. The trick is this auto TPL thing. So if I go back here, so this is when we discovered you could actually use module liquid tags in an autoresponder. So there is definitely tutorials on this. I think there's both one on BC Academy and BC Gurus. I know Scott did one on BC Gurus.
Yeah.
So we take module web form results, template equals blank, so we don't output it, and we put it in a collection called form. Then we get the globals.user.entity.id and the globals.get.eid, which is a pass parameter. When you submit a form, let's see if I have one. When you submit a form at the end of the URL on the thank you page, you have that EID. That's what we're grabbing there.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. We use that all the time. Well,
yeah.
Maybe put in Google Analytics, like tracking codes, and you usually want to just do the beginning part of the URL, so because all that other variables change at the end.
Yeah. So what we're really building is the from profile and the to profile. So who's the message from and who's the message going to? So in this case, you have a message from fellow Sandpiler from profile items URL. So that's a link to that person and then their name. So that is how this shows up with a link. If I click that, that will take me to his profile page on the Sandpile.
That's awesome.
See, when I hover there, it's bcsandpile.com/profile/build-shoulder. Right?
Yeah.
And then just a table, because that's the simplest for output in an email. And again, we have a link to this icon is also a link to that item. And then So if there's an image, then it outputs the image. If there's not an image, it outputs the default. So when Bill got his message, he would have had a nice picture of me because on my profile, I have a nice picture of me, right? Bill chose not to have that on his profile, which is fine. Let me see if I can get to him quick.
Hey, you probably need to update that page. It's a few years that picture is taken, right?
It is, yeah. There's been some changes. So you can see Bill's got his the Sandpile icon, so that's why this shows up as the icon. And then we have the form.results.message. So that's this message. I'm not sure where the question marks come from. Might have been something I typed. And then you can say you respond to, and again, we're just like, we're just building this message, real straightforward. And the link is always back to that profile page. And that
I love it. And so Dave, we're actually working on a project right now where we're going to make some updates to a donation form on one of our sites. And they want to add a tribute feature where if they want to donate on someone's behalf, they can do that, and then they can enter in their information. And we were just having this conversation today. Well, are we able to automatically notify the tribute that someone made a donation on their behalf? And we were like, nah, I don't think we can do that. I think you have to do it manually. Now I'm seeing this. I'm like, wait a second. If someone puts in a tribute, I can then submit a hidden tribute form that has the information, and then I can use Liquid inside of the autoresponder to basically say so-and-so just made a donation of X on your behalf, blah, 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 whatever, and we can automate that. So I'm seeing how this has good use outside of just building a messaging app, for example.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's pretty cool. I'm just trying to find the page where this gets output.
I feel like, Scott, and Dave, I'm so grateful for you guys embarking upon this this technique or this strategy, because I feel like it's a little secret here that can now unlock so many possibilities, which is I'm excited to explore.
Cool. I agree. And like I don't regret one single second or minute. Scott and I became good friends over the process, and we got to understand how each of us work, and it's just been fabulous from my perspective. He would tease and say that I lean on him a little bit too hard, maybe, but it's
you can't put a price on friendship with Scott Reynolds, that's for sure.
No, you can't. It's just been fabulous, and through that, my wife has met his wife. I've met her. Scott's met mine, and they spent a lot of time at not this last Max because they didn't come, but the one before in San Diego. Both our gals came, and they spent all their time during the day together, and then in the evenings we all went out together. It was, you can't. What's a few hours a week worth, for a relationship like that, right?
Yeah.
So here's an example where we're outputting some of that information. So it's 12582. I'd have to look and see. So that's the messages. And I'm saying, show me all messages that are classified where the item ID is this.item ID. And what is this in this case? Oh, I'm on the profile. So look up the profile ID and then show me all items that are classified with that. So if you remember sorry, way too many windows open here. So if I go to the messenger,
Guys, we got to step up these messages in the Sandpile community. We're not even testing whether or not they've prepared this for the 500 web app item limit. We only see 200 messages in there. Let's go. By next time, let's get that up higher.
I'm going to check in a second, but I think we have that handled, and I'll show you how. So this profile ID, right? Every profile has a profile ID, and that's all I'm using here. I'm getting the profile ID and then saying, show me any messages that have been classified with that profile ID. Does that make sense? I'm in the detail page of the profile web app. Therefore, it has a profile ID, and I'm on that page of my page. I'm saying, show me any messages that are classified with my profile ID.
Got it. Okay. So this is kind of what we're alluding to before, but now we're seeing it here in the code.
Yeah, and it's basically the same for any of those other tabs. Anytime we're trying to show that specific information, it's strictly just this classified with either the EID or the profile ID or whatever it happens to be. And
Very cool.
that's the bulk of it. It's that's why I got that's Bill put in the little happy face, and that's what those two question marks were.
Oh, gosh. We didn't account for emojis in the autoresponder? Come on, guys.
I suppose. Now let me look and see if I'm talking out of my butt here, but I think we set the web app items to auto. Yeah, see how they're all inactive here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's how we decided to handle the 500 record limit. So we set a expiry date on the web app item.
Okay, so you're only keeping a certain number of days of past message history, for example.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I forget what that number is. I could go look and find it, but basically that's why these are all inactive, because after X amount of time, they self-expire, and that's how we're handling the 500 record limit.
Okay, and just to confirm my understanding here is that when we make a web app call, it only returns active items, which is different than when you make a call using module data for, let's say, products, for example. It actually gives you all products, and you actually have to filter out by just the ones that are enabled, for example. So I just want to clarify that, because if their web app items are inactive, they actually don't get in your way when you make a normal web app call. Is it correct? Is that correct, Dave?
That's correct. And on top of that, because I'm only asking for the items that were classified with my profile ID or my EID,
yeah,
I'd have to have 500 messages that are active before I would hit that limit.
Got it. Okay. Which, based on this activity here, we see is very unlikely.
Yeah, I probably have the most messages just because I do. And you can see that's it, right? There's no way there's not even close to 500. So.
Oh, I see Scott shared a little message that he got some more sales today. That's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, he's like that. He's I won't say he's bragging, but you know, he is pretty good at that stuff. That is like Scott says in the comments area. Once you get this technique and you start using it, it's surprising where you can actually make it work. I know just at its simplest. This was kind of after the fact. We used that in a couple of these templates, in particular this real estate agency, just to show you a different use case for it. Let me get to a property.
Oh,
here.
like contact an agent, perhaps. Send a message
exactly
to them. Oh, nice.
So when you say contact the agent, all we're really doing is in the EID, I'm dropping Kristen Smith's email, and that's nice. I'm using that same technique to send her a direct message. So there's definitely lots of ways you can use this. So is that I know there's a lot of code there, and I know the next question someone's going to ask is, hey, can you put that code somewhere where I can get it? And the short answer is that's difficult, just because of the way this particular site was built and what we had to do. So
Dave, the honest answer is that you and Scott are already friends at this point, and so you don't value the extra time that it would take working together to make this publicly accessible. So you've already reached the maximum height of your friendship, is what I'm hearing.
No, that's not fair. Now, come on. What I am saying is the techniques have been exposed through tutorials and other methods, and you know there's a bit of magic in the back end here. But the key here is you have a messenger web app. Someone just dinged me. Did I get another message?
Oh, are people sending you messages?
No. Scott says, or you can hire him to help, which is absolutely true. I mean, if you really feel you need this, Scott's for hire. And you know, I guess if it came to it, you could come to Chicago Digital too, and we would take care of you there as well. So there are people that can take care of this for you. But at its simplest, we have a CRM linked to a profile so that we can expand on the amount of data that's available. If you didn't want to use a profile, if you just want to use straight messenger, you could just have the CRM and the messenger and that form with the autoresponder. That's at its simplest, that would work.
Nice. And I think someone else brought up the point, Bill brought up the point, if you guys are interested in actually getting your hands on the code, at least for part of this functionality, you can get the real estate template at BC Gurus and get that piece. That could get you, a step closer.
Yeah, at least in how the autoresponder works. And it might be simpler because it's not anywhere near as convoluted there as convoluted is not the right word, as complex as we had to make it for the Sandpile site.
Right.
But you can see here in the action, it says email equal Kirsten_Smith. So I'm just with some code, I'm just inserting it in there. And so whatever that autoresponder is formatted like, and you don't have to format the autoresponder, we just wanted to make it look nice. Right? If you don't format it, then it looks like the other one.
Right, Dave, I think I'm seeing someone else here that I just want to point out. Can you go back to the inspect element that's behind your other windows there? So there's an action URL, and you are passing the email and the subject as a parameter. I don't know if I've seen that before. So what's the purpose of that? Are you on the thank you page? Are you displaying that information somehow, or is that for the autoresponder? Does this have something is this the same thing, or is this a whole new topic?
It's I'm just trying to make it big enough to see.
The good old email code editor.
Yeah. So this is what you're talking about in this last pass. God, I hate. So what I'm doing is passing the email equals and the subject equals. So the subject, do you need to put the subjects in? Probably not. But I just chose to do it as a customer inquiry for property. And I think...
Does that actually update the subject of the autoresponder?
Yeah.
Really? So this is built into Business Catalyst, like you can add these parameters and it just changes things, or these parameters that you're adding custom and then doing something custom with it?
Only specific parameters. I mean, you can do email, you can do subject, and I think you can do email from, and that's what you can do.
Seriously,
yeah.
Gosh, I'm not faking it. Like I'm learning a lot on this conversation with you, Dave. I had no idea that you could do that.
I don't know if I can find it real quick here, but we got a couple minutes, so I'll just try. What would you call that? Form parameters? Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna.
Oh, so the documentation I have not seen. That's cool. I think at one point Scott Reynolds might have been the one who put together kind of all of the variables that could exist on business. This is way before Liquid. Like all the variables you could pass in, or like the mapping of all OIDs to the different objects and things like that. I don't know if that's still around anywhere or if that's helpful in this scenario, but that was quite some time ago.
Yeah, and I sorry, I can't put my finger on it, but there is somewhere something that lists out what you can customize there. Form subject, and it's like this every time a guy. Oh, maybe. So customizing the autoresponder.
You know, it would be cool if Adobe put that Adobe Sensei technology into their Business Catalyst documentation. I could just speak. Yeah.
It would be nice. Yes, it would be nice. Come on. Where is it?
Or maybe Alexa, we can program it to work with this documentation.
Well, Alexa knows it knows everything about you anyway. So setting up a formed email using web forms, and it talks about that process basically. But here's your action URL. So you have email equals, right? Subject equals, email from. Looks familiar?
God, I had no idea this existed.
So I'll throw that, now that I found it, I'll throw that into the chat if anybody wants to.
Oh shoot, I just set off people's devices by saying the word I won't say again.
Ah. So, much like you can add that page ID or ID at the end, it's just in that last little bit. So it's a cool technique, and let's say lots of places you can use it. I think what you described there is going to be an interesting project. So I say that because you're probably going to give it to me anyway.
Dave, you're not the lucky recipient of
No?
that one, but
Oh, wow.
we definitely know who to call to if we need help.
Oh, man. So Jack says you just set off his Alexa mic.
Well, it doesn't help if you say the word over again.
Yeah. Alexa, turn off the lights.
Give us
Alexa.
5-star review on Facebook and everywhere else.
Well, hopefully I've given you enough that you understand at least conceptually what's going on behind the scenes. And if you can figure it out, great. If you can't, Scott's for hire. If you come to Chicago Digital, I'm sure we'll figure something out there too. At its core, it's pretty straightforward. We're using some of that existing BC technology that's kind of hidden and behind the scenes. That form autoresponder, that's documented in the link that I sent you there. And how you build it is up to you. Like we built it in a bit of a fancy way, but I mean, at its simplest, just the way it works here works just fine too, right?
Oh yeah, because that's basically just sending someone a message, but not keeping a log of that message in a secure area.
That's right. The difference is that we're doing a double Ajax there, once for the message, and then once we're building a web app item so that we have a record of what happened there.
Right.
Now, it's not like I could maybe go find this transaction, maybe. Like if you went to go to dashboard. So you can see here that Scott apparently was sending a bunch of messages.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, getting that message volume up higher.
Yeah, I don't know if it generates a case. So you can go find the case and you can go find the message, right? So it's not like you can't get it from the other one. But you'd have to know some information from here, right? You'd have to know where to look on the back end.
I guess we could do a module data lookup on cases, and I imagine if you and Scott Reynolds put your heads together, you'd probably figure out a way to accomplish it using just cases if you had to, for example. But web apps are really powerful, and so I don't blame you for wanting to use them.
Flexible too, and remember this was Scott. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was even relative. No, it wouldn't have been pre-module data because we did use module data. It was early days module data, so I don't know that we necessarily understood how powerful it was at the time.
Right.
And Bill says, thanks for the Sandpile dedicated to his 140 character query last week. You're welcome, Bill. And I'm glad we were able to provide the level of detail needed, I think, to fully understand what was going on there.
Yeah, and if you love 140 character limits, then BC Sandpile is the social media platform for you, because word on the street is that Twitter is now changing that limit. So
yeah, well, listen, we
come message on Sandpile.
we can roll with the times here. All I gotta do is go to my code there and find that limit. Where
I bet it is not as easy for Twitter to update that.
No, probably not. Not easy for me either, because apparently I closed that tab. But that's kind of the power of web apps. Like, they're so powerful. You just kind of have to think, well, how could we do that? And that's where we got down to. Now, as I say, we spent so much time on everything else and getting it to where it is. We didn't really flesh out what we thought was possible for this widget. We always thought it would be a 3.0 implementation. And then,
wait, Dave, how can you delete something? You can actually delete a web app from behind a secure area. Is that what that garbage can is for?
Yeah. So I'm logged in, right? So I can go. Let me go right to the end here, and I don't like that Scott said he got a few more sales, so I just click that and it goes away.
And then it's actually gone in the back end, right? It deletes it, or are you guys disabling it? Or you can do either option if you wanted to.
In truth, I disable it, then delete it.
Got it.
So there's a link there. And you can see the data message name, data message item. And I don't think there's, yeah, you see there's no href on this one. But in the code, in the script.
You're triggering the edit save and then deleting it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, again, we hide it and then delete it. Hide it so that you see something right away, and then just deleting it in the back end.
Awesome. Very cool. So I don't know if there's any questions from the live audience that you'd like Dave to dig in deeper. We got a couple more minutes. But I want to say, Dave, thank you so much for walking through this. Scott Reynolds, thanks for joining us here via chat to chime in, and mostly just to be able to hear firsthand live all of the praise that we are giving you on this show today. So I'm glad you're here for that.
Deservedly so. He's been a great friend for me. So. And he still takes my calls, which I won't say there's people that won't, but after all the times I've leaned on him, he still takes my calls. That's a pretty good man.
Yeah, that's great. You're making everyone else in the community, Dave, feel bad now that Scott doesn't take their call. So that's a way to go.
Yeah, well, in truth, there are some things that I'm able to do for Scott, so I do try and reciprocate in the ways that I'm able to. So I guess at its simplest, that's one of the ways that preview apps found their way into BC Guru's templates.
Yeah, the collaboration. BC Sandpile is the place to collaborate. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I hounded him till he built preview apps for me, and then put them in because I think they're great. Just like the Foundation Builder's fabulous app, the form Builder, fabulous apps. Like we're really extending the power of Business Catalyst and giving it just breathing some new life into it.
I agree. Well, good. We're gonna wrap up today's show then. Oh,
sorry. Scott Dave said, "Can you talk about widgets for a minute? If you don't mind, we got a couple of minutes. If you don't mind, I don't mind."
Yeah, go for it.
Light it up, Scott. Light it up. Oh, you have to promote them, I think, or something.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, you want me to do it? I have to find him then.
Okay.
I think you have to.
It'll be a race. I just promoted him.
Just because I'm sharing my screen.
Mac loses.
I think because I was sharing, I didn't have access to everything I needed there. There we go.
Welcome, Scott.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right, I'll make it really quick. And because I know we only have like 2 minutes left. But one of the things I thought was really cool about what we were working on, but didn't actually quite finish, was the widget idea. And so what the idea was to have web apps kind of control all of the content, or maybe not all of the content, but a lot of the content. So let's say you wanted like on the side, like where the messaging was, like that was a widget. So let's say you wanted another widget, let's say underneath. You'd go to that page, and if you were an administrator, so at the time it was me, Dave, Ursh, and Penny, if one of us four were on that page, we would see like a web app form, and you could write out the title of the web app, which is a widget, and the description, and then and you hit submit, and then it would show up on that page. And then you could like decide if you only want it for that page or you want it for all the pages. And it was like this really cool idea that we were talking about, where you could like design your site or add your content from like the front end instead of the back end.
Kind of like creating custom dashboards for yourself by adding widgets onto it. Yeah,
very similar. And so the message was like the first of the widgets, and I don't think we have any other widgets out there, but I'm sure if you look at the code, there's probably like dinosaur code in there, like that we started with the widgets, but then we're just like, we have to eventually launch this project, so probably stop that. In fact, I think it was Dave who stopped me. It was like, no more. Let's just launch it.
Well, it was impressive, and that's a cool concept. I hadn't even thought about giving an admin user the ability just to type in, oh, I want to now pull in this other component and then dynamically pull in another web app. That's really awesome.
And there's actually 3 other widgets there: an example bullet widget, an example widget, and then Scott's contributions. That was his big sale for the day.
Yeah.
Now that was a neat concept, and it's maybe we'll get back to it eventually. Who knows? But it was a lengthy project that we did have to launch eventually. So it's been long enough now, so that when I go look at the code now, I go, "What were we doing?"
Yeah. I know when I've done similar projects for other partners that have seen this and asked me to do it for their projects, I go and I change like half of our code because it's like kind of old ways of doing things and it's a little messy.
We've learned better ways, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a great start for sure. All right, cool. Thanks for letting me talk about widgets.
Yep. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.